Now I'm joined by Murat Aslan, who is an associate professor of security studies at Hasan Kalyoncu University. He joins me now live from Ankara. Professor, there were investigations that were launched in the past about alleged war crimes that Israel has committed in Gaza. But the fact of the matter is that there was no accountability. Do you think the fact there was no accountability in the past has emboldened Israel's current actions?
Well, we can visit two different things in this case. The first one is international law, and the second one is international politics. International law binds all the states if it's a customary law, or if it's based on a treaty, that means only the ones party to it is bound by it. So in this case, once any weapon or ammunition is used, I think the customary law is much more in effect. In this sense, for sure, there was an attack to Israel on the morning of Saturday, October 7th. But international customary law is very clear that there must be an appropriate and proportional response to the threats in the frame of self-defense, actually. In this case, once you discriminate the targets, it's good though. If you don't, that means it's a burden on the civilians, which most military in the Western armies call it as collateral damage. I think that's the case for the current situation in Israel. That's for sure. There's a highest degree of emotions, and now we left wisdom to somewhere. On the other hand, there must be a planned, well-drafted, and also a very good planned response to Hamas within the mood of retaliation. So right. In this sense, I think we should reassess exactly the effectiveness of the current issues.
And I think it's important to underline here that there have been casualties on both sides. More than 1,000 people have been killed in Israel and more than 1,000 people have been killed in Gaza. But the difference here is that Israel has electricity, Gaza does not. Israel has water supplies, Gaza does not. There are no internally displaced people within Israel as of now, but there are more than 100,000 internally displaced people in Gaza right now. And according to the United Nations, that number could increase 8-folds if the fighting does not stop. Do you think world leaders, when they talk about peace, they take this into consideration?
I don't think so, because the security thinking of Israel is very clear and strict. Just because of what happened during the Second World War and right after, the Arab-Israeli wars in 48, 56, 67, and 73, there's a clear understanding of protecting Israel against any threats or risks. That's why once they perceive that there's a threat, Israel responds very harshly. Maybe because they think that there's no other home for the Jewish people. Well, it's a thinking. Or there must be a room for the Israeli citizens that much cleared for being very safe. In this sense, I believe they leave wisdom in case they're under attack or threat. And this is the essential reason for this. But we must check exactly the law of war, humanity, and human security, because if you exclude it, then expect the further risks. For instance, if you hit all the civilians in the region, there will be much more radicalization, especially in the areas populated either by Palestinians, maybe inside Israel. We must expect further radical organizations trying to reach this region and fight against Israel. So there must be a balanced strategy that the retaliation should be appropriate and proportional.
Indeed, and that balance appears to be missing in international world order right now. Professor, since you're joining us from Ankara, let me ask you about how Turkey is dealing with the evolving situation in the Middle East. We have heard multiple statements from the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He has said that killings of civilians on both sides is unacceptable. Then he also was very critical of how Israel is conducting airstrikes in Gaza, bombing hospitals. So what is your navigation through this?
First of all, on the morning of Saturday, October 7th, there was a shock in Turkey, especially Turkish public. And Turkey first started to understand what's going on. It was really a pure neutrality that Turkey hesitated to claim any harsh statement. And at the second and third day, it was still the same. But right after the retaliation attacks of Israel, the basic concern appeared to be twofold. The first one is the security of humanity, actually covering both Palestinians and Israelis, not only of the population of Gaza. And also, other issue is the sacred values that Turkey respects a lot, mainly Masjid al-Aqsa and also the holy places.
Right. Professor, sorry to interject you there. Now we can listen to what the Turkish president said about Palestine and Israel. Let's listen in.
We do not approve of any action against civilians or any attack targeting civilian settlements. We believe that war has a morality and that all sides must respect this. Unfortunately, this principle is being grossly violated in the conflict in Israel and Gaza. We clearly oppose the killing of civilians in the territory of Israel. Likewise, we do not condone the indiscriminate and continuous bombardment and slaughter of innocents in Gaza. Bombing civilian settlements, deliberately killing civilians, blocking vehicles, bringing humanitarian aid to the region, and trying to show all this as a feat can only be the reflex of an organization, not a state. Israel should not forget, if it doesn't behave like a state but acts like an organization, it will end up being treated like an organization. Turkey wants the war to stop as soon as possible and the problems between the parties to be resolved through negotiations. I have had many phone calls, including with the Palestinian and Israeli presidents. We've expressed our readiness to provide the necessary support to prevent the spread of conflicts. We are ready to do our part, including mediation and fair arbitration, to get our region out of this cycle of violence.
Israel should act like a state, not like an organization. This is what the Turkish president said. What does he mean by that?
Well, I think it depends on how both parties act on the ground. Because Hamas is an organization, that's a fact, not a state, because there's a state in the West Bank led by Mahmoud Abbas, and Hamas is an organization over there. On the other hand, there must be rules either of Israeli state or international laws that Israeli army should respect and follow. So what President mentions in this picture is that there must be a difference between the organization and the state. So reacting must be based on and within the rule of law. That's the end state, I believe. On the other hand, he treats both parties with the same narratives. That means not harming civilians and respecting the human rights.
All right, Professor Murat Aslan, thank you very much for talking to us here on TRT World. As always, really appreciate your taking out the time.